it's a huge symbiotic relationship that you realize. I didn't know nothing about sponsorships before I did this job too, before I had this festival. That's when you start to realize this is what actually funds this part of the festival, and what you do for them at that part of the festival funds them over here if you're doing your job right. And then when you take that seriously and you're like, man, their money means something to me. It doesn't just fund my thing.
Right.
And I don't just slap their name on a thing, and put their logo on a thing. I build a real relationship with a person, and I make sure that they're feeling good about what we're doing together, and then make sure that what I'm doing for them is aimed in the right direction.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Metal Maniacs Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ingersoll, and I'm here with a man that has a dead skin mask.
Oh, you like that?
Yeah.
Lotion that up. It's your boy Mod. What's good, Jay?
I always try to come up with calling him some fucking metal title or rock and roll name or something. So I'm like,
yeah. And if it ain't heavy enough, I'll call it out.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's weak. Don't ever.
Yeah. So,
no, but they're all good.
So every week Nick gets called something different or whatever.
I
so
love it. This dead skin mask.
Yeah,
it
hell
years
yeah,
to
man.
perfect.
Earlier it was the Skeletons of Society. That fucking jammer, man. So.
Feeling the Slayer today.
Yep. Oh, but today we got two very special guests. So we welcome the man that is the owner of Next Level Entertainment. He's also a vocalist at the band Kill Crown. He's the owner-operator of Scapes Landscape and Design, in case you need some landscaping done, and the owner-operator at Michigan Metal Fest. So we got Steve Maple. Thank you for coming on the show. And then we got Ken Joseph, who is the media director, coordinator for most of the Michigan Metal Fests.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the conglomeration that you guys are, because I know it spans well beyond just the actual festival itself. But
for sure.
I do want to say thank you guys so much for coming on the show, driving here to Muskegon. I know it's never on the way for anybody to come to Muskegon, but we do appreciate your time, energy, and effort for coming on our show, man. So,
yeah. Well, there's a big lake in the way,
What's that?
There's a big lake in the way for a drive to Muskegon.
Yeah, exactly. So today we're mostly just going to focus on Steve. I know you're in Kill Crown. We probably won't spend much time on that today, but I was telling Ken, anytime you want to bring the band back, we can have an episode just focused on the band too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. We'd love to, man.
Hell yeah. Sweet. So today we're mostly just going to focus on the Metal Fest though. So I'm very curious and I want to know a lot of things, and the fest itself is coming up. So just to get started, Steve, you want to tell me first, and then Ken, you can tell me. I've seen you play a little bass or used to or whatever. So if you want to just tell me how you got involved, like what sparked your interest in metal or extreme metal,
Okay.
Your early journey stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So, and is this lean more toward like the festival cultivation or just
more personal? Just
personal?
your journey for metal.
Okay.
Like what made you fall in love with this? Because what we like, we call this an extreme metal podcast.
Yeah.
And we venture out, but we know it's a certain niche of guys that
sure.
like the shit we like.
Yes,
So
man,
tell me a little bit about how you got involved in that.
I've always loved metal, but I think I used to focus more around like a new metal style when I was younger, and honestly, I always loved extreme metal, but it was after I started doing Michigan Metal Fest, and we just got so many submissions from so many bands all over the world, man, and it just really started to dial in. Just like I love metal, that I knew that before, I didn't dial it all in so much, but now I really have that clear idea of what I love about what genres I love and why, and it's just I think just that exposure, that I hadn't given myself, because I was just like a working dude, man. I did my band, I did some stuff. I didn't have my finger on the pulse before I really became, I guess, that dude,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I had exposure without whether I wanted it or not to thousands of bands, yearly. So I was just like, wow, and I started to realize like I'm huge deathcore, death metal in general, but deathcore is definitely like that shit and that beat down, just punch your face in kind of music that it really grabs me, man. I've always loved like hard, like gangster rap, like old school stuff too.
Okay.
I think that I'm just into extreme music in general. I like the extreme nature. I like that honesty, that brutality that people aren't afraid to hold back.
Okay.
That's true to me,
Yeah,
So I
hell
think
yeah.
that's what I'm into the most.
That's awesome. And what about you, Ken, as far as getting into metal and the journey?
Yeah, so as far as getting into metal, like had a small amount of time back in my younger days where I was interested in like Cannibal Corpse and Guar and bands of that nature. Then I kind of set it aside, and as as a bassist, I was in some like cover band projects for a little while, and then linked up with Steve and worked in New Skin for a little bit, and that kind of rekindled some of my passion for some of the harder stuff in life, and and then started really getting into it pretty heavy, being involved with Michigan Metal Fest.
Okay. So Steve, you say you kind of first grew up on the new metal. That was what was kind of striking you first, you said?
Yeah.
So is that what kind of got you into wanting to become a vocalist and everything too? Is that?
I think so. Yeah, like you got Mudvayne,
Okay,
Slipknot. When I say new metal, I know it's a little broad, but that's what it was technically.
We were just discussing it's a broad brushstroke, and not everything means we like it.
Yeah.
We like some new metal ourselves, but also you can kind of get in the weeds with that. We're like, oh, you must like this band. No,
no,
I don't want to hear certain bands from that genre.
Yeah.
So it is a very broad brushstroke, but we're with you. We get what you're meaning, especially based on the bill that you're putting forward, like the types of bands that you're promoting. So.
And I feel like with bands like Slipknot and Mudvayne, that's when the new metal actually turned the corner and was starting to go back into the heavier shit.
Yeah.
So
I liked the extreme portion of that the
Mm-hmm.
most, and I used to really like the hooks.
Okay.
But now I think that I've realized that it's not that vocal melody singing so much that I just need something to grab me in a really clear, profound way. So an extreme metal hook, oh God, that hits even harder for me, because if you can grab everybody with that, that's just showing how much talent you really got. The newer stuff that's coming out now that's blowing up so big is testament to that. You know?
Yeah. So when you write your music, though, is that how you lean with the hooks? You really looking for that strong hook, like in your band?
I'd say most of the time I'm looking for something that's really I'll get something that's really gonna grab you. I'll make sure that I don't stop until I write something that's absolutely, you're not gonna forget it.
Yeah.
You're gonna hear it and be like, I can't believe he said that.
Yeah.
Like, wow, and then some of it, will be in such a catchy way. You're like, oh, that just slams, and I can't stop thinking about it. So I, especially lately, man, we've been writing some nuts stuff in Kill Crown. I'm super happy.
Yeah, I love hearing a vocalist say that they love putting the hook forth, because as we love extreme metal as extreme as it gets, but sometimes I need that, like you said, I need something to grab onto when the song's done. I need to be able to kind of rewind that in my head. That's why some of this, like newer deathcore and stuff, kind of gets lost on me, because it becomes just an amalgamation of a bunch of noise. You know what I mean? But if you throw a couple good hooks in there, you're going to pull me right back in, even if you're doing this crazy technical stuff in between or whatever, So I think that's very important, especially when you're writing lyrics or songs in general. You got to kind of know a little bit about. I always say, there's no rules to music, but you should know the rules. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, there's no rules to it, right? You can make whatever you want to make, but you should also know the rules so you can apply some of those techniques.
Right.
Good foundation is always paramount.
Yeah.
And there's no definitive change.
Right.
That's always something to be, if you're wrong about it, if you think,
Yeah.
I remember hearing like, James Hetfield say that solos were dead, and people saying like rock is dead and all those silly statements like that. Like, no, as soon as you say stuff like that, the world's going to just keep letting that hit against their head, and they're going to change that.
Yep.
You can forge the future by trying to say that it doesn't exist.
And everything comes back around too. You could say, oh, well, the solos are dead, and then, alternative new metal, all that, was the thing for a while, and there wasn't as many bands leaning towards that, and then all of a sudden it comes back around, and look where we're at now. Almost new metal's coming back. All these bands that used to be together in year 2005 are now making a 20-year reunion because people will listen to their band now. You know, bands like At the Gates.
Yeah.
They created a whole genre and they didn't even know about it because they were on hiatus after they broke up, and then they came back and realized that everybody was copying their style. Well, you know, so things just come back around in cycles. You know, that's the same with music. So
they absolutely do.
What? So, Ken, do you play bass still, or is that still something that's part of your repertoire?
I'm not in any current projects or
Okay.
anything like that. I find you know, I'm living a little bit slower life when it comes to music. There, I say that with an asterisk. You know, I try to add as much value as I can with the you know, with the festivals that we've got going on. Because we, you know, there are two of them at this point, and then you know, the club shows and stuff like that. So I try to add my value there and, you know, concentrate on that aspect of it. And then, you know, as far as the music scene, I get to be around it through my videography. I get to do quite a bit of stuff there, you know, get some really good footage of bands that are out there, you know, practicing and doing their thing every day and out there on the grind. So, you know, I can add that way.
Yeah, so you're still part of the scene, doing something and contributing. You know,
and he puts together that videography work at top level too. So it's just really cool. He's like really gaining traction with a killer reputation from it too. So it's just like a really cool way to push that artistic edge across. He catches it at the show, and then he gets to bring it home with him and put it together. And he does all the not only the editing for the video, but you know, all of the editing on the audio too. He'll take the cuts from the board and actually put together a killer mix from it.
Yeah, I'll pull all 30 channels from the board and take it back with me, you know, as long as it's available. And so yeah, I get to make my contributions that way, and you know, still be part of the music scene, and also get to live, you know, semi-normal life, you know, because I mean, you know, just as well I do, you know, when you're involved in a project, you know, that can get really hectic, you know, for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, for sure. Oh, excuse me. So Steve, why don't you just tell me a little bit about then, like, how you started to put on like the first Michigan Metal Fest? Like, what made you of everything, you know, wanted to become? Because a lot comes with this. People don't understand that. You don't just contact bands. You don't just, you know, just say I'm going to have a Metal Fest one day. There's so much more that goes into it, and I want to talk about all of it. But what made you get the crazy idea just to be like, I'm putting together a Metal Fest? Also, if this thing is a little, you can kind of take that if you need a little bit more space there, buddy.
Let me cut this out. Did it for me. So actually, one day I just said I'm going to have a Metal Fest.
Okay.
No, I had been doing these things called Maple House parties for a number of years at my house. We had massive crowds out there, and bands lined up wanting to play all the time. There were free events. You know, I didn't make the bands promote or do anything for it. I didn't ask anything from anybody. It was just a thing that I would do. And it got these big turnouts all the time, you know. So just everybody wanted to be a part of it. So one day it started to outgrow my house, and I thought to myself, you know, what if I had this thing in a field or something, you know, just get a little bigger. A little bigger area that's not my home, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man, because there would be cars, like, lined all up and down the road just forever. There was just so many people at the Maple House parties.
Boning in weird places, you know, it just got rough.
It definitely got big quick.
So it was an outside thing at your place? Did you have like a stage outside?
It was in my garage.
Oh, in the garage, okay.
So it was outdoors too, so basically the doors would be open, and there's a big stage set up in my garage. With all the lights and sound everywhere. It was actually really cool. We had these lockers, you know, like metal lockers you open up.
Yeah.
We had cut them down and installed them into the floor. So they were part of our stage. There was 3 lockers right there. They had lights down inside of them, flashing and stuff. It was super cool, man. It was like this really unique stage. There was part of it you could stand up on in the front, like you could really get in the crowd's face. It was nuts, man. It was a whole vibe.
Hell yeah.
Built-in little vanity boxes and like barriers, like there was barriers. It was like a small venue in and of itself, you know, that people from all around the area just looked forward to. Like the Maple House parties got real big, you know, pretty quick.
Yeah, we do 3 of them a year.
Okay.
So I one day I put out a post on Facebook, and I just said, you know, and I don't know why I chose this word. I really was thinking of just the party outside, but I said, you know, if I was to do a festival outdoors, who would want to be a part of it? And that post just lit on fire. I mean, it just went nuts. I had 40 bands respond immediately to it. Like, we're just like posting, wanting to be a part of it. I had a production hit me up. I had promoters, all everything that you needed, all the elements, all hit me up on that one post. Essentially, besides location, a couple things like that. So I was like, man, this is crazy. I was all weird feeling because it was like I could feel it was heavy. That there was something happening. And so I went and I talked with my current partner, Jeff Harris, the owner of the Music Factory, and he was the guy I knew that could get talent.
Okay.
And so I was like, hey Jeff, I want to throw a festival. And I had been doing some successful shows up at the Music Factory for my band too, so we'd fill that place with our like album release shows and stuff like that, So he's like, he had a trust with me, and he's like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool, and I was like, yeah, there's gonna be 40 bands, and he's like, what? And I was like, yeah. He goes, how many days? I go, 1. He goes, what? I go, yeah. Let's do it, man. Let's do 40 bands in one day. We can do 2 stages, split them in half, and we'll run 10 bands per stage, and go with it. And then we'll break it down to one wide stage for the last 2 or 3 bands. And he's like, does it have to be 40 bands, Steve? He said it again. And I said, yeah, Jeff, it's got to be 40 bands. And it wasn't the 40 bands that hit me up per se.
Yeah.
But it just like that one post just like built that festival structure.
Yeah.
And so we went off from that, and we ended up, he says, well, all right, let's build a festival, and we ended up, I ended up hitting up the Arboretum because I knew that they had Lilapalooza up there. So I dry called Brett Myers, the director of the Arboretum up there one day, and I said, hey, my name's Steve Maple. I'm thinking about having a giant metal festival. Wondering if you maybe let me do it at your Arboretum up there. And he took about 3 seconds was it. And he goes, well, we never done that before, but I guess I'd have to see, what it would take to do it.
Really?
I'm on this phone. I'm like quiet. I'm like, he's saying yeah.
Not what you expected.
What?
Got this big sales pitch lined up.
Yeah, like I had way more things to say. It's like, yeah, and
you don't have to sell it to me, Steve. The answer's yes.
Yeah, and he didn't even know me, or anything like that. So it was really wild to kind of start that process up, and then we ended up getting Devil Driver and 36 Crazy Fists for our first year.
That's some big talent right off the rip.
Yeah, right off the bat, man.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of all the killer bands from this area. I mean, that year we made sure that every band that meant something to Michigan or the area around here was on it. And I don't want it to be misconstrued that it's supposed to be bands from Michigan.
Sure.
It's not that at all. I get that all the time. They're like, oh, it's called Michigan Metal Fest, but you only got like 4 Michigan bands. Well, these are the bands that are really good in the scene, and our scene isn't limited to just our area.
Right.
It's being held in Michigan.
Yeah.
It's in Michigan.
Yeah.
We're in that state.
It's not like the headliners are all from Michigan,
Yeah,
It's like,
you'll run out quick.
Yeah.
It'll be the same bands every year.
Yeah, exactly. The same
mean,
handful of
would be.
bands, and then, getting these bigger bands, you get that draw, especially because you're trying to make it successful.
We want the bands that are on their way to being big.
Yeah.
Like those are the bands that we want to help on their stepping stones. So it doesn't matter what size they are.
Right.
Like you guys had Accuser the Brethren on here recently, and we love those guys, man.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. They're all great guys, and they're on their way somewhere.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what the path is, what the speed is, but the momentum is there, and the ambition is there, and the intent is there, and people see them and they love them.
Yep.
That's the kind of talent that I want to put on Michigan Metal Fest, and that's always like that. It's not for homies. It's not, it's just not, it's never been that way.
Yeah.
It's not for my band. You'll see my band not on it every other year.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not that guy. It's not built for me.
It's not Steve Fest.
It's not.
Right. That's cool. That's a great attitude to have. But I agree too, because those are the kind of bands we want to have on our show. Like the
exactly.
people that are like gonna go on that tour, get in the car, and they're gonna go out there and see what's happening. They're gonna go hit that tour up, or
your casket robberies, your autumn lies buried, your filth, this year we got so many awesome bands, man. Fight from Within is one of them that I'm just so excited about this year because they just grind so hard and grow so fast. And and they're good people too, man.
They just did Sonic Temple too, didn't they?
Yeah. Traverse the Abyss.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Traverse the Abyss.
Yeah, they're making friends real fast all over the country.
So you get this festival together, but things start rolling. Was there some major challenges with this first one? Some things you didn't expect, just getting this whole process going, or?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're this kid from this small town of Delton, Michigan that no one's ever heard of. And now you're doing this, you're playing like big boy ball, I got to throw as much credit, toward Jeff and Eric from Art of Entertainment as I can, because those guys really pushed a lot of momentum through when we first started. They had been doing this for a long time, so they really helped, put that motion into action, because I believe I would have had a big event, but getting the right bands and the bigger bands, because that's what those guys booked. They basically booked the top end, and I was booking the lower end.
Okay.
But yeah, they did a lot for that, man, and then the whole team that just got put together because there was no other festival like this around. You know what I mean? Like we were the first metal festival in this area to really just go all in and not try to lighten it up.
Yeah.
So it was cool. There was a team that came together for this that was more of a lot of our team is like a rock based. Like a lot of the people on our committee and our team in general, they were going to these rock and heavy rock and metal, but like it was a little bit of a lesser extreme mix, but we were the thing going on in the area, and everybody just kind of showed up there to help. And then all of a sudden, year after year, you start to realize this team is just strong and awesome. And they're huge metalheads, they might not have known they were as big of metalheads as they were, but they all are now.
Yes. So when were you involved since day one then, Ken?
No, I was not. Actually, 2022 was the first year I was involved, and that is the year that I dubbed Michigan Mudfest because it rained all day. And I got involved, kind of as a press director right off the rip.
Okay.
And we were, my wife and I run a small photography company, media company, and so we went down there to shoot it and take care of the media. And it just rained so heavy all day. I mean, we were getting cotton candy bags from the vendors so that we could wrap our cameras.
Damn.
By the end of the night, it was like the mosh pit was literally just a mud pit. But it was my first experience in festival season, and it was just great. I was hooked from that point. So yeah, that was the first year that you really started to put together a committee, right? Or
Yes. Yeah.
So at that point, people were kind of getting put together, and it was starting to compartmentalize to where, people had specific tasks, and, there's like hospitality and, things like that, various like little departments for the Metal Fest, so that, people are kind of concentrating on one thing.
Okay. So this started in 2017?
Yeah.
Was that the first year you did it?
Yep.
And then you had 3 years, and then so you had some teammates during that time. A lot of the same people that came through to help you out, or
Yeah, but it was a different vibe then. Like, I had a few partners, and after the event, we used to just kind of shove it off to the side because it was such a major thing to do. It just like it beat you down to go through it. So we would push it off to the side until we had to, December or January or whatever is when we start working on it again, and it would just beat us. You'd realize you had all this work to do, So after COVID, we took a couple years off because of COVID.
Right.
After we came back from that, the biggest thing on my mind was having a committee that worked year round as a functional unit.
Okay.
And that there's more people aware of what's going on. A lot of what was being planned for those first few years was a lot me. And so it was hard for me to convey what I needed help with because there was so much going on and so many textures to each thing that had to go on with it. So it was really weird. For the first few years, it was like you just had to figure out how to be a leader in this job.
Right.
Because I had no idea how to do that whatsoever. You know, I just got stressed and overwhelmed. And everybody's like, dude, you're doing a great job. And you're like, okay. I know it looks cool, but I'm scared to death of it at times, you know? And I like you said earlier, you know, I run a landscape company. That's my bread and butter during the day, you know? So I work every day doing that. So doing for everybody that works at Michigan Metal Fest, this is their second job, you know?
Right.
My assistant, Ashley, I think it's her job. It's her job.
So, Steve, when you say you had this fear and this anxiety early on, was that partly based in maybe some potential financial obligations or losses, or was it just the communication aspect of
the amount of work to do?
Okay.
It was so at the time I understood it to be 6 months worth of work, and that was a lot for me to swallow because there would be some years that it wouldn't pay appropriately for 6 months worth of work, of course, because you're doing a passion project from the ground up.
Right.
You know, this is a grassroots festival. You know, there was never any big funding pocket that came in and said, "Hey, dude, love what you're thinking about doing. You know, here's this." It was literally we had to scratch and bite each year to make this happen. So I had to make a lot of sales preemptively each year. That was a big thing too. You know, everybody's like, "Yeah, dude, you're promoting hard." I'm like, "Hell yeah, I got to."
Yeah.
You know, I got to pay these bands out. I got to pay this stage out. I got to make this happen. And our production and band cost is just quadrupled, you know, since the beginning.
Yeah.
But you know, we also have a lot more help. We have a lot more sponsors that are all about it. You know, that it's a huge symbiotic relationship that you realize. I didn't know nothing about sponsorships before I did this job too, you know, before I had this festival. That's when you start to realize this is what actually funds this part of the festival. And what you do for them at that part of the festival funds them over here if you're doing your job right. You know, and then when you take that seriously and you're like, man, their money means something to me. It doesn't just fund my thing.
Right.
And I don't just slap their name on a thing, you know, and put their logo on a thing. I build a real relationship with a person, and I make sure that they're feeling good about what we're doing together, and then make sure that what I'm doing for them is aimed in the right direction. Like I'm not going to just have a sponsor that's just like, you know, that doesn't fit.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like,
so
my brand has to be able to help their brand.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it can, then they're going to be happy all day long.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if they're not happy, then I'm not happy because it's a 1-year pop off thing. I did work for that to get a sponsor that it doesn't have longevity.
Yeah.
You know, so like to me, having that symbiotic relationship and that actual bond of our brands are fucking cool together, that means a lot more to me than the money. You know, the money comes naturally with that.
Yeah.
And then you have candid conversations with your sponsors like, all right, dude, we're the magnifying glass. How big do you want the light?
Right.
You know, how big do you want to do this? What kind of bands do you want to get on next year? You know, let's talk about that. Let's see, let's talk about how much that costs, you know, and what we can do and then the more personally involved a sponsor will get, 1,000 times more effective their sponsorship is. Our people just latch on to them. Our people and beyond, you know, their connection to the metal scene as a long-lasting sponsor like that is super effective, man. You got your dirtbag clothing, you got my merch guy. Everybody's heard about my merch guy now.
Sure.
You know, I mean, and their sponsorships with us is making them just that much more synonymous with, you know, metal and clothing. Andy's a great guy and he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
You know, when he gets involved, he's all in.
Yeah.
That dude comes, shoots t-shirt cannons at your event
yeah.
and bonds with everyone. Make sure everyone gets a t-shirt that says my merch guy on it. And people love that.
Yeah.
You don't know how many people have come up to me and be like, dude, I love that shirt I got from Michigan Metal Fest last year from my merch guy. stupid how many times I heard that from people.
Yeah, that's badass.
You know, so that's one of my favorite things is just making actual bonds with people where you're like, let's take our companies and do stupid shit together.
Yeah, it's
You
all
know,
about
we have the
providing
dumbest
value.
conversations on the phone, me and him now too. You know, let's get on the phone and just be laughing, man, 'cause the stuff we're thinking about doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to double down on what Steve's saying there because it's just so important. Like I go to a lot of different events myself, and you can see where it's I'm not going to name, but you can see where it's just logos on banners, right? And not having that mentality of logos on banners and really working with these sponsors and getting to work with cool people. Like I don't think that I've gotten to talk with any of them that weren't just great people. You know, and then all throughout the year, you know, we're trying to make sure that we're driving the business to them in the way that, you know, suits them as well, you know. And so the synonymous, I like that as a word because it's a super important synergy that has to go on there, and you get to work with really cool people, people that love what you're doing. You know, you love what they're doing. I mean, it's a great position to be in. So
People see your companies actually enjoy working together that much,
Yeah.
and it just that's contagious.
That's a nice feeling to have.
Yeah, I love how you're everybody's trying to provide some value for each other. It's not just
Yep.
let me take your money and slap
Yep.
your logo on a flyer because I need to get this festival happen. Like you actually care. So I
Yep.
like to see that because, you know, promoters, festival guys, you know, fucking sometimes promoters. I mean, it's like with any niche, you're gonna have a portion of people in that niche that are dickheads, but they kind of represent for that genre or subgenre or whatever it may be. So like sometimes concert promoters have put a bad name out there
Yep.
sometimes. So like you able to keep them, you know, keep that reputation up and know that them people aren't there just for a check because
That's
when you
important,
when you
man.
just look at them like money and you don't look at
Yep.
them as a person or just you know, it's just another number and that you shouldn't look at it like that, you know.
Absolutely, man.
Because not all money's good money either. You heard that, right? You know,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you know because
Yeah.
you own your own business. So you
Yep.
know you might have a client or something that you're like, probably shouldn't have took this job.
I'd
'Cause,
rather
you
work
know-
for nice people. It
Exactly,
doesn't matter
dude.
how
Yeah.
wealthy anybody is
Yep,
whatsoever.
exactly.
There's plenty of money.
So with the sponsors, just a quick question on that, if you don't mind. So you know, obviously their name is on the flyer, but then they got like a booth or something there, and you're helping promote their product, or is that some vendors, or what is
sure,
that,
yeah.
like for sponsors, or you
So
know?
we got a bunch of cool different levels for sponsors.
Okay.
So that really varies, and there's a ton of different variations for it. So you start, I think we got like our lowest sponsorship, I think is $250, and then it goes up to an event sponsorship. I think that's like 10,000 or something like that. So depending on what you get, there's a VIP sponsor. Every year they actually have their booth right at the VIP booth, and they're all over that, and they're schmoozing with the VIP people. They're schmoozing with the bands. It's really important to them that their brand gets seen by a certain demographic. You know, same thing with we had like a drum sponsor, you know, and he wanted to make sure all the drummers at the event got his drumsticks and
Oh.
got a certain package from him, you know, and was
Yeah.
able to communicate with him directly. So, you know, there's certain things that I'm able to work out with artists and different, you know, sponsors or companies that gets them directly connected, you know, with the full consent, of course. But I really try to do that, you know, if it's a sponsor that like we have a haunted house. That's that was our main stage sponsor last year, Dark Side Haunted Acres. And now they're our second stage sponsor this year. And one thing that we do for them is that we really pull their promotion in when they need it.
Okay.
So we want to talk about them right now, and we love talking about them any time of year. But when we really talk about them, you know, is right around our event and right after our event.
Right.
And that's something that we've worked out between us is, you know, we're going to do our paid ads for them potentially after our event, whenever
Gotcha.
they want. You know, whatever just works for them. If they want it in December, I don't care. You know, it doesn't have to be anywhere near the event. Whatever works for your company to actually benefit from having us help you. We'll figure out that little niche for you, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's the most important part about it is just treating every situation as human as you possibly can.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's just
yeah, it's not just paid ads or something like that. You know, we talk about them all year long. You know, and like he said, when when it's time, that they need the traffic. I think one of the things you were talking about, haunted house, we took the whole committee down and, did a tour of the haunted house and a film crew, and then put together, the videography aspect of it, so
okay.
they've got that piece of
Nice.
media that they can add to their repertoire and things like that. So
Oh, cool, dude.
We've done
That's
that actually
badass.
at a couple of different sponsors.
Yep.
We, like One Nation, we go up there and we have our big committee go up there and meet, have a big dinner up there, and they're one of our sponsors. It does a great job. They give us catering for our bands
Okay.
at Michigan Metal Fest and Midwest Brutal Fest and our cancer benefit that we
Yep.
did. Just great people, so we try to make sure that we do as much as we can for them. Throw that out. We presented Austin with his own custom Michigan Metal Fest jersey.
yeah, that was cool.
Michigan State colors
Nice.
at a dinner up there one night,
Hell yeah.
just to make sure that they understand that they are as special to us as we are to them, so that's huge. I think that a team in general, man, it's nothing without just love and camaraderie for each other,
Yeah.
and to really understand what the next person needs out of that,
Yeah.
because we're all doing this for a reason. And to not understand what region each person's coming into it is just spinning you around in circles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got to know what motivates people, you
Yeah.
know. So you got the sponsors, and then you got vendors, which is separate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the vendors, how do they contribute? They're just there at the event. Are they kind of like a sponsor too then, or do you just have sponsors that are sponsors, and then you have your vendors?
We got both, yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
a lot of the sponsors, like say if they, I think it's $1,000 or above sponsorship, you automatically get a vendor location on site.
Okay.
So there's different levels for that, and that can vary in size depending on what you're going for. We can customize it. We always customize whatever sponsorship we can, as long as it's within some reasonable grounds and you don't spend more than 6 months negotiating
Oh,
it.
yeah, going back and forth and shit. Yeah, I get that.
Sometimes it gets kind of, really personalized with some people, but, I still don't really mind it too much.
Right.
I want them to feel that, like, if you get that true connection to it and you really feel like, I did so good this year at this
Right.
thing, you're coming back there every year.
Right.
So I definitely always tell people that I'm just happy to be a part of this. I don't feel any way like the owner or anything like that. I mean, I'm not the owner. Me and Jeff are both owners of
Yeah.
it, but I feel like everybody kind of owns their own chunk of it, and if they don't, then it falls back on one person again, and I
Right.
get back to that frantic version of myself that used
Yeah.
to exist.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that guy,
And then you got your volunteers too, right?
Yep.
So you got volunteers. So I'm assuming that you got security there, right?
Yes.
And, but you pay for security, assuming with the bands and all that, or are those volunteer security as well?
So security is a really interesting thing that's come about. I'm really just extremely proud of these guys and thankful for them so much. This has been kind of a work in the making that, again, you ask where this comes from. It comes from Michigan Metal Fest existing. These are security guards that have been with us since the first year as volunteers.
Okay.
And over the years, they started helping more and more and becoming more involved. And there was, I think it was 2022, actually, the year that he first started with us.
Yep.
I was like, I really want to, I was talking to Sean, the head of security, and I said, I really want to get you some money for some of your guys for this time.
Yeah.
We were getting into the area to where I could finally start having a little bit of a budget to pay out,
Yeah.
He says, all right, and then I hit him with that, where's your W-9 at? Something like that. And you can hear crickets on the other end. I was like, I want to hit you with that 1099. You got like a company name. And he's like, what? And he's just sitting there for a minute. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, he's got BMF security.
Nice.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, these guys not only doing every one of our events all swagged out in their BMF security gear and looking badass, and they're badass anyway.
Yeah.
Really professional group of guys, best security team around.
Fuck yeah, dude.
But they've scored just tons of jobs after that. They're doing really good. They're a close community themselves. And then what is it? Three members are on the committee.
I
3 or 4.
think it's 4 at this point, right?
Yeah, so at least 4 members from their team sit on our committee for Michigan Metal Fest, and are some of the most contributing members up there, honestly.
Okay.
So just an incredible group of people that has just cultivated all around the idea of no one else was doing this metal festival around here, so somebody's got to do it, you know?
Yeah. I'm absolutely fascinated by just the behind the scenes work that goes into it, because you say you're just a dude from Dalton that likes metal, and like I can relate. I'm just a dude from Muskegon that likes metal. Nick's just a guy from Muskegon. We're from small towns, and then like all of a sudden you got committees and teams and sponsors. It's like, man, that's to me that's fucking. That's awesome, man. Just to be able to build that from your idea or just off the wall idea, and maybe just a cold call to the guy. Hey, can we come and use your place? And they're like, yeah, and you're like, okay, well, fuck.
I mean,
my mind this is happening.
My mind is blown that it goes from like this party that you're having a couple times a year to now it's a business. You went from just having fun with your friends and as many friends as your friends could bring to now you're doing this huge event for the community, for the metal community, and all of the sponsors that you got. So I just like to see all of the moving parts grow as you're telling your story from 2017 to now 2025.
Yeah.
I guess I'm curious, what's some of the feedback that you got over the years that has helped you grow and shape this event from where it began to where you are now, either from the sponsors and from the fans, if you'd like?
Feedback on it. Well, I'll say it's always been so positive, just so overwhelmingly positive at times. When I was again at the earlier points, I was buried in this work and I didn't understand it, and I was just like, man, I don't know how to run this whole company. On top of like I want to do this huge party for everybody, but it was really hard. The feedback that helped me the most was, I don't know if you guys know Metal Mandy from Q106.
Aware.
Yeah, all right,
yes.
all right.
We don't have a personal connection yet, but
so she's a great person. One of my best friends. She was Miss Michigan Metal 2019. It was a competition that we used to put on.
Okay.
And so that was one of our yearly events.
Okay.
Through Michigan Metal Fest, and so she won that, and she became Miss Michigan Metal for a year, and just did amazing. So great that she's now a radio DJ. Stemming from that job, Scary Terry from Q106 found her and it was like, yeah, I gotta work with her, like what are you doing with this person, this gem? I'm like, yeah, like you do need to work with her. And
nice.
they built a great relationship. She's all over the radio now, but she told me one day that she said, you need to make a committee.
Okay.
You need a committee to help control what goes on here. And that was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. It took a while because it was 2019 when she told me that, and then COVID happened the next year.
Okay.
Everything fell apart.
Yeah. My
whole dynasty, if you will, just kind of died off for a couple of years. I didn't know if it was ever coming back, So we started to do that. She's like, you need to make a committee. We need to get organized. She helped me get organized in Next Level Entertainment and really get things to a next level, I guess you could say. And but then COVID happened and it kind of went away. And then when 2022 happened, that was my biggest goal, I guess, is to end that year knowing that there's a group of people that can help me. Just take parts of it, like he said. You got volunteers. You've got vendors, you've got sponsors, you've got, all the schematics of all the bands, just figuring all of that out alone. You got promotion, You've got there's like 5 other.
Yeah,
yeah.
graphic design
Graphic
and
design,
technical assets,
Yeah,
and
especially now all the social media stuff. That's gotta go.
social media
Yeah.
control and stuff like that. You
Yeah.
know,
So we were able to get this group of people together, and like he said, assign just some positions. And some people don't have necessarily a solid thing that they work on year round. Some people do. We all have our jobs at the events. But when we're meeting at the meetings, it's not like a big idea gathering thing, voting on stuff. It's not like when you think committee, it's not necessarily like that. It's more like, we
Yeah.
got this thing.
Yeah.
there's no gavels.
Yeah, man. We got this thing. We've had this thing for 8 years now.
Right.
We just need to manage this thing, and make it its best that it can be. And we like to not move on to the next big idea or the next big challenge until we can wrap up what we're working on and what the step we're taking. I know this year there was a moment where we're like, all right, we need tickets for parking online, and we just Ken created our own box office,
Yeah,
like
so
over
we're
the
operating
last
as our
2
own-
years. He
as our own
developed a
box
box
office now, which
office
is
for
pretty
us, and so like we had put all this work in, and we're working nonstop in the office, like especially this year to get both these festivals ready. And the parking was brought up. I remember just being like, no, just like we can't add anything. We ended up adding it, but but the idea was, we really need to cap off our ideas for a moment, because we are a very creative group. We can create all day long, and it's the funnest part of this job.
Yeah.
But the hardest part of this job is maintaining what you created.
Yeah.
We talk about things like that. Like the Savage package was something that we started talking about. What was it, like a year ago or something like that?
Probably more.
A year and a half ago. But the want to make sure that we got like the VIPs and stuff like that. Ashley takes care of a lot of the VIP stuff. Really all of it, right? Like she has that one. That's fully under her grasp. But just making sure that those programs are taken care of, locked in, and there's a good foundation for them. Takes precedence over adding another big huge thing to the
Right.
VIP packages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have ideas. We do the same with the show. We can have a million ideas, but executing them is the first thing. And then you can get overwhelmed with them ideas too, because then you're like, which one do I pick? Which one do I actually do? Which one's going to be beneficial? Then you get into that analysis paralysis where it's like, oh, I'm fucking overwhelmed because I have too many things going on.
And then to realize that you're going to have to still nurture that idea in another year when you have 7 more ideas.
Yes.
God,
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
Like, I want to do this with my life. And then you're like, wait, next year I'm going to want to do something different.
Yeah, exactly.
But Nick, back to your initial question about feedback. If you're talking about like audience feedback or patrons feedback and stuff, I'm a weirdo, right? So I'll just drive around on the quad and I will see somebody stand there and hop off and start asking questions because I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I care about their opinion, but I don't care about how I look when I do it.
Sure.
So like take last year for instance, we swapped to a 2-stage format. We got great positive feedback out of that because like it's 5-minute layover in between the stage, right? In between
It's a nice turnaround time.
yeah. And so I asked people specifically how they felt about that, and everybody loved it. People are really open with positive feedback and things that they like and things that they don't. One of the things we ran into at some point was in the year before that I can't see all the bands because we had a 3-stage format, right? So taking that feedback and using it to kind of go into a 2-stage format is that's a super big deal, and people just loved it, and it was cool. You could stand up on the hill and just kind of watch this herd of people and energy go back and forth in between every set, and you got to see every band. It was like a whole day of you didn't have to miss anybody if you didn't want to.
Yeah.
I mean, you might miss a drink,
Right.
but I mean, you
And
don't
that
have
for
to
the
miss.
bands is super important too, because the bands never have to be like, oh yeah, that other band had the big crowd
Yeah.
while we were playing.
Yeah.
Right.
So like
You
in
know.
regards to audience feedback, we try to do that, and I'm just weird about it, man. I'll hop off the quad and be like, hey, how's it going? What's your name? So what'd you think about this, that, and the third? And I'll just let it rattle around in the back of my brain and bring it up.
I think it's awesome that you're going out there and getting that kind of feedback,
Yeah.
and making yourself open
Yeah.
to and available to listen to
And
it.
half the time, people have no idea. Like I'm just they don't know if I'm just some guy out of quad or
Yeah.
I'll introduce myself briefly, but I mean, like, the people are always really open to it. So
That's cool.
That's a cool thing.
Can I get just back to the committee real quick? So how did you decide who to pick and how did that develop then? Because it sounds like you got a group of people together and it's the committee for Michigan Metal Fest, but who appointed that? How'd those roles get filled? And
They chose me. I just couldn't get rid of these people, dude. All of them. God, all of them. No, specifically, right off the bat, what really got it rolling was my homie Jesse. He's our sponsorship rep. Sorry, my brain went retarded for a second there. But he before he was our sponsorship rep, he was a volunteer and he worked security at it and he would do whatever we needed that year, man. And he was just all about it and really good. With people, he knows a lot of bands. He meets bands. He's always rubbing elbows with everybody. Just a great guy though. And during COVID, like I said, I didn't know if I was coming back or not. He's the reason that it came back.
Okay.
So Jesse Dibble, if you're wondering, the reason why 2022 and beyond happened, I'd give him full credit. He bugged me. He said, "Dude, are you starting the festival back up this year?" And I was like, I don't know, man. It's just so much work, Jesse. And I said, I don't know if I can do it, man. It was killing me, dude. It was putting me in a bad spot in my personal life too. Professional, it would take food out of my mouth, trying to focus so much on that I wouldn't be focusing on my company enough too. Cause there was just one of me, So he's like, listen, man, I'll help with whatever you need help with. I'll do anything you want. He's like, anything, dude. And I mean that. And this guy implored me to please start the festival back up. He said, people need this, man. They need it a lot more than I think you know. And so I said, what we need, Jesse, is money. If we could get some help with money, I think that we'd be in a lot better place. I said, what if you became our sponsorship rep? And you just start reaching out to, some companies that we like and that we maybe already work with or, of that you think might, help out, whatever you think. I was like, if you could just put some time into that, because that's something that I just don't have time to really just jump on and learn how to do right now, in the middle of all the rest of this life. And he said, dude, done, absolutely done. So after that, we actually brought the festival back. I had a few people helping me out early on, and we ended up conflicting on some stuff. So they pulled out, and it was kind of abrupt, and it was weird, And then that was when the real people around me just started stepping up. Ken had reached out to me and expressed interest in photography, and then I talked to him about, I said, "What do you think about maybe helping direct the press at the event?" And that immediately you could see he was just like, yeah, I think I would really like to do that. And he took it very seriously, him and his wife, Heather. Right off the bat, they just took it very seriously. They made an email for it. We got a separate email for each division that we have. Obviously at this point it's like that, but
Right.
back then it was, it was like, yeah, we need to start, splitting this stuff up and getting these different divisions going on. And just the right people just really just stepped in where it was needed. They would see that hole that needed to be filled. And, not all of them got completely, populated, and some of them have come and gone, like our vendor coordinator. We've had a hard time just keeping someone doing that. And it's not any particular person's fault or anything. It's just because of how things have come up in each person's life that we haven't been able to keep that filled. So my personal assistant's doing that job right now, as well as 17 other jobs for both festivals. Ashley is absolutely amazing. If you hear this, Ashley, you are my boss. So yeah, I very much am aware of how fortunate I am and the people that are surrounding around this are genuine people that just need this in their life, just like I did. And, we get beat down by it. I put on a lot of shows. Some of them, I'd say half the shows I put on, I don't make money at all. I pay for some of them,
Right. Yeah.
that's just full disclosure. I'm not in this for money. I'm in this because I love music, man. I love the music scene. I love knowing that it's better because someone paid attention to it and nurtured it. So if I take a couple losses here and there, it doesn't bother me. Overall, I haven't lost anything because of it, so things always even out,
Right. Yeah.
when you really have a passion and you really follow it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Luckily I was able to get encouraged by the right people along the way to keep going to where I could get myself back to a stability point and being that rock and anchor for people around me that I really should be. That's where I like to actually feel necessary,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
that. I'm actually feeling necessary in this equation now rather than just, yeah, you could take it or leave it.
Right.
And, I if you could take it or leave it, then I don't know if it's for me.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know
that
what I
makes
mean?
sense.
I like being able to finally feel like I'm here for a reason, and it's just to try to make this all make sense for a lot of other folks.
Yeah.
The fans, the bands, the companies, the volunteers, the committee members, the people. There's so many people that just want this to be a part of their life that I was like, I'm kind of a prick if I take this away.
Right.
And then, and then on top of that, I need to make sure that I enjoy this at the right level.
Right.
Otherwise I'm
Yeah.
doing a disservice to everybody in that manner too. And I know that it's like almost like a civil service, like there's
Right.
people need metal
Yeah.
and they need it at a large caliber.
Yeah.
It's growing more and more and more. So I think this platform is awesome for that. I think
Yeah.
that we're going to help other things in the metal community keep on rising up and growing bigger,
I love that, dude. I love that sentence.
Yeah.
So we're talking a little bit. I want to get more into the band stuff, but real quick, just say on day of show, you said, your role. So just say day of Michigan Metal Fest. What is your role? Putting out fires or, yeah?
Yeah.
Fireman.
Okay.
Fireman for sure.
You're the fireman?
Fireman.
Okay.
Yep.
I kind of figured that, but I figured you were the guy that was answering all the questions.
It's varied too, like from year to year, like how severe that is. The first 2 years, my speed was like, it was like choom, 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 back and forth. And then 2019, we had Hate Breed, Chelsea Grin, Head PE. That was an awesome year. And our team had been together. This was our third year of putting on that event. It was before we had the committee, but it was our team's third year. So like we were pretty dialed in. I remember walking around and I'd be like, hey, do you need help with it? They're like, no. Oh, okay. And I go over here, hey, you guys got that? Yeah, we got it, Steve. No worries. And I'm like, my pace slowed down. I'm just walking, just kind of strolling through there thinking, man, this is incredible.
That's cool as hell,
You
man.
know?
All right, well, let's get into some of the bands, man.
All
you
right.
know, you said that. I'm sorry. What did you say? The guy's name from the Battle Creek Music Factory. What's his name?
Jeff.
Jeff. Okay, I wanted to say that, but I want to speak out. You said he was a big one in being able to get some of this bigger talent, like on the first couple years or whatever.
For sure. Yeah, Jeff. So ultimately, the guys allow me to kind of run with this, so I'll usually pick the bands. But Jeff is the owner of Art Entertainment. So they were talent buyers for years before that, buying talent for the Music Factory and all over the U.S. really.
Okay.
It's pretty big company. And then Eric, my agent, is awesome dude. Just absolute representative, man. He makes sure he gets my back and everything. And we've
Nice.
become really close friends over the years. So all of us are just crazy close friends at this point, and it's cool. But yeah, those guys, they got the talent company, you know, and that's what gets those bigger bands around, you know. You don't just reach out to a band and
Right.
say, "Hey, I would like you to play my party."
Yeah. Yeah.
It don't work like
Yeah,
that.
especially with some of these bands that you've had on.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Big names.
Yeah. So, now who says, "Hey, can you reach out to whatever, Lorna Shore or whatever?" Is like, who picks the band? Like, I know you said you picked the band, so you're like, this year I'd love to see you. You're at work and you're like, here's something. You're like, I want this band.
Yeah. When it pops in my head, you know, I'll just be like, "Oh, let's check on these guys." You
Okay,
know?
gotcha.
So yeah, it's a process. It's a very exhausting process sometimes.
Okay.
Some years it just happens. Like Mushroom Head last year, that got locked in like November or something. It was like super early, and it was done. The deal was just done. I remember my agent just got pissed at this other situation. This dude that was jocking me around, and like I said, my agent's one of my best friends. He's like, "Fuck this guy." He gets on there and he books me a headliner in like an hour.
Mm.
You know, just did it, just got it done. He's like, "It's done, dude." He's like, "Now we can just lock in the other bands." He's like, "Who do you want?" And I told him, and he's like, "All right, we got it locked in." And it just happened that fast, you
Nice.
know. Whereas like this year it was hard. It was hard getting everything locked in and getting the headliner locked in. And then the two to three bands below the headliner don't lock in until you have a headliner.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
every time you see those flyers,
Yeah.
those bands that are right underneath the headliners,
Yep.
none of those come in until the headliner's in. So that's kind of an interesting piece to keep in mind. They don't want to say yes to something early because they could get really cool tour offers,
Right.
right? But then that dynamic changes if you have a really cool headliner.
Mm.
So now it's like, okay, I could lock into that because they got Dying Fetus on there.
Right.
You know, let's go.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a weird thing each year. You know, it depends on how fast the headliner gets locked in. And then I usually just line all the rest of the bands up,
Yeah.
you know, and there'll be some, they'll be like, "Who's the headliner?" I'm like, "Dude, do you want to play on this festival?"
Yeah.
Like for real or
Right.
not? Like, you know?
Yeah. Well, at this point and the growth that it's shown and as much as you've done with it, it is one of those things where it's like, you might want to try to jump on it before it's too late at this point. Who
Yeah.
cares
Yeah.
who the headliner is,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
just know that it's going to be with this track record and the names on these flyers, just know it's going to be, you're not going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Kind of know what level you're on.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
This
Well,
thing's
yeah.
happened for 8 years now, and
Yeah.
the reputation precedes itself. It's
Yeah.
like you've seen the bands we've drawn. Do you want on the bill or not? Like,
Yeah.
Well,
now you have that kind of power.
Yeah. Well, and I
Um,
want them to know that, you know, no matter what the headliner is, you're going to make a good decision by playing the show.
Yeah.
Because we're going to give you really good promotion. We're going to really add you to the family. We're going to really try to make sure that you have just the best ride.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to get fed great food while you're there, no matter what band you are. You know, you get that catering, you get taken care of, you get treated really well. Yeah, man, I think, you know, and it's not like it really irritates me when someone says that, you know, and I get what they're going for. Some bands, especially in the extreme community,
Right.
really want to team up with like sounding bands.
Oh, yeah,
a
for
lot
sure.
of times, you know, and I get that. I'm that way on shows when I'm playing a 5-band show. I really would prefer to be in the presence of a whole room who really loves what my band's doing.
Right.
You know, so my band sounds like this kind of genre. It'd be cool to have these bands that are kind of in that genre because it
Right.
helps, you know, the whole crowd there is going to be digging what you're doing, you know. So I get
Right.
them on that, but Metal Fest is known for being a mixed bag,
Right.
you know, and
Yeah.
we're also known for really good promotion and a really good time,
Yeah.
no matter what band you are. So I hope that kind of eases that stress with some bands. If you're listening to this right now and you're wondering whether, you know, Metal Fest is good for you or not, I think that it's good for anybody that just understands what it is and what it's there for, you know, because you can go there. Man, I've had some bands sell just a ridiculous amount of merchandise at that thing. Like, you know, local bands hitting $3,000 in sales.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Just popping off,
Yeah.
man. I've seen bands make a ridiculous amount of money there, man. Our headliners are pulling in $10K at their merch booth, you know,
Crazy.
one night.
Yeah.
It's a cool thing because they're there all day, You know, that's the other thing too, is like, if you're a band and this is a good market for you, whether you think that you're going to appeal to the whole crowd or not, there's going to be a lot more people there that aren't necessarily extreme
Right.
metal fans that are just going to think your band is badass and they're going to buy all your shit.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot more of that than I think people think
Right.
there. Like the band dynamic there and people's actual attachment to the bands there is something I haven't seen in a lot of places. They get there early and they just
very community driven.
Yeah, from the first band, it's a big crowd. Like right off the bat, the
That's
first band that opens it up, they got a big, huge crowd standing in front of them right off the rip, and they're getting attention at their merch booth, and then they're there all day. So they might have played at noon, but 7:30 p.m. when they're still being an OG at their merch booth and hanging out with people and talking with them, they got 7 more people coming over. Oh, that's the band I've been looking for today.
Yeah.
And they're still shopping.
That was something that blew me away, even in 22 with all the rain. Like, like he said, as soon as the gates opened up, people were, going, and they were right at the stages, right off the rip. Like, and the amount of people for such a miserable weather day as that was, like the amount of people that just stuck it out and was there and soaked, and like I'm not even talking about the volunteers, I'm talking about the patrons. They were about it for the whole day, and they were there like cold and wet and literally in the mosh pit which was a mud pit at the end of the day, like basically mud wrestling. Like
We trauma bonded that day.
yeah, but as far as like people just being there in support for the bands, and then with it being a kind of a mixed demographic as well, like some of these bands are expanding their demographic a little bit.
Yeah.
So I mean that's always cool too.
And I can't tell you how many times I've heard a band on wax, on paper, on the computer, whatever it is, and been like, oh, they're okay, or whatever. Maybe it's not for me. And then I see them live. Even 2 weeks ago, we had the same thing happen to Nick and I. We seen the band, and we're like, man, these guys fucking rock. Like, because I'm seeing them in person. I'm getting to experience the whole thing of what their band's about because they're live on stage.
Yeah, the show.
And there's so many bands that I've written off, and then I've seen them live, and then they become maybe not my favorite band, but they still become a band on high regard because they did so well live that they just made an impact on me. So just because it wasn't necessarily for me doesn't mean I won't be a fan of their band after I watch them play.
That's
they
it.
put on a hell of a show.
Yeah.
So I think that's beneficial when you have these mixed bags.
Yeah.
A band like Head PE, do they fit in with, Dying Fetus? Not really, but you might like Head PE and you might like Dying Fetus. Not that they're on the same bill,
Right.
But just for an example.
But that is a great
there's
example.
Something to take away from both bands that you would like, and you see them up there being passionate and living what they live, living their truth, and you can't deny that, man. You see that in people,
The year we had them with Hatebreed, Head PE had the biggest crowd that night, and it was it was a brutal event, man. It was a heavy event. Most bands there were heavy, and Head PE went on. The whole crowd was just enamored by it because Jared, when he gets on stage, he is the focal point.
Yeah. Once
that happens, it's very much all about what's going on up there, and man, he just grabbed a hold of everybody and put on a amazing show. And
his crowd control is second to none. Like I really enjoy seeing that. Even last year it paired with Mushroom Head and whatnot, it was like they just had a great crowd.
I've seen them a few times, and I've loved them every time I've seen them.
Yes.
I don't necessarily have all their records or put it on all the time, but I know when I seen them, I was like, I do like Head PE because they fucking jam, dude.
There was actually a second during their performance last year where I thought the barriers were going to come over on us. Like people were just surging that hard. It was really cool, man.
That's badass. So I just, do you have like a treasurer or somebody that handles all this money? Because I know there's a lot of probably guarantees with bands, right? Like, is there certain guarantees that bands want up front, or or like I know that's how. I mean, I'm sure Fetus, they've been doing it so long, they got to have we need to see this check at the end of the night.
Get that deposit, baby.
Yeah. So, can you tell me what that looks like? You don't have to go into any numbers or anything, but can you just kind of tell me what that whole, like, the more transactional part of it looks like?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. We have, a lot. We got the stages that come in. We got the bands that come in, different talents, stuff like that. A lot of the bands will require a 50%. The larger they are, the sooner they want it. You know, and then if a lot of times it's just, you know, I'm a trusted buyer in the market now
Okay.
after this many years. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, so like nobody's really like pressuring on it, but usually about a month before we have them out, we send them a 50% deposit. And then I try to get them paid before they get on stage. You know, sometimes, a lot of times, like for shows, you're just really wanting to pull in that money from the night to finish getting it in your hand to be like,
Right.
here you go.
Yeah.
You know, but we've been able to crawl past that point a little bit, I think, to be able to just make them feel comfortable when they get into town. Just get them paid.
Nice.
You know, same with the sound and stage. You know, we got a good relationship. That's 313 Entertainment. They actually help us out on both festivals, Michigan Metal Fest and Midwest Brutal Fest. We'll probably end up working some other events together too. Good guys up there. They really help put us in a good spot, and they got top notch production.
So with this Michigan Metal Fest, I guess, and you may have alluded to this, but when do you guys stop working on this or start working on this?
The
No.
day after the
Okay.
festival.
That's kind of
I
what
just
I thought.
said no.
Yeah.
Like,
That's kind of what I thought.
the last 2 years have been consistently that. Like
Yeah.
the festival shuts down. We have I guess I can't say the day after. There's a day of cleanup, you know, and trying to
Right.
get things right back
Yep.
at the Arboretum, and then like literally the next business day, there's some sort of planning going on.
Cool.
You know, whether it's huge planning or small planning, it's still
Yeah.
planning.
So we meet during our off season. We'll meet once a month for a few months, and then that'll switch to every 2 weeks for a long time.
Yep.
Most of the year is every 2 weeks,
Okay.
and then before when we get fired up to the event, so I think was it a month and a half before?
Yeah.
We switch to every week
Okay.
meeting as a committee, and then for that last month, we're on site for every meeting that we do.
Okay.
So
That makes sense. Why the Lila Arboretum? Which I had a bitch of a time trying to know what that word actually was. Like I had to look it up on Google, and
Lila.
she was like, oh, Lila.
Yeah.
She was like, Arboretum. I'm like, well, that's not really what that says, but yeah, that's close, I guess. Arboretum. Yeah. But yeah, why there? I know they gave you the shot in 17 when
Yeah.
so of course if you're a loyal guy or whatever, but obviously it was good for them, right? So
Yeah.
but is there a reason why you stuck there, or?
I think a lot of it really does come down to loyalty. We're really good to each other. Really close relationship with everybody up at Lila Arboretum. We
Brett and his crew are phenomenal.
yeah, Brett,
you know.
one of my good friends. He does a lot for me, actually. You know, he'll shoot. My landscape company gets hired for subcontract jobs out through him too. We do volunteer work up there. We actually need to do more. I shouldn't say that. It's been a couple of years. I need to get back up there. But we just really care about the community, and the Arboretum is a place that you can really get a lot of that out, and you can make a place for people and make people more aware of a great place. So that's just kind of how I am. I'm always multifaceted and multi-layered when I'm thinking about an idea. So I like things to just improve.
Mhm.
You know, so that's
Yeah.
the kind of place that it's not just this dry location that's like, you know, hey, it's big enough to do it here and
Right.
you got enough parking. There's challenges all over. I
Yeah.
have to build a whole venue in that place. It costs me a lot of money.
Yeah.
But you don't ever forget it when you leave it.
Right.
Yeah,
When
I
you
mean,
leave the Arboretum after Michigan Metal Fest, like half of your memories is, I can't believe I just did that in like this forest, you know?
yeah, it's a beautiful place too. Like for the fans and patrons or whatnot. Like that's something. You know, I guess I'm not really hearing of any, you know, festivals going on in places like an Arboretum. But I mean, so you know that has its sticking point, you know, in and of itself. You know, I mean, like if you go, there's the totems and the built-in amphitheater, and there's just a lot of really nice things to look at, and
Okay.
as well as, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, Brett and his crew are great, and you know, there's loyalty there, but even from a fan point of view, there's a lot of beauty in that place as well.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
So
and-
what is it, like a park or?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
The Arboretum is basically trees. You know, they restore a lot of trees. They plant a lot there, a lot of different species.
nursery and
A big nursery, and they're, you know, they teach a lot up there, and they do a lot of different classes. They have a farmers market that they run during the summer that's
Okay.
actually quite large. They're connected to a lot of events. The main reason I put it there initially was, I think I briefly mentioned this, but it's a event called Lollapalooza
hmm
that they have up there yearly. And I had seen it a few times, so that was, my idea was they do this there.
Oh,
They must
yeah.
know something about it, and they're kind of local, so they're
Right.
not out of my scope,
Right.
So we started doing it there, and we just fell in love with it, man.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Safe to say there's a lot of shade for the visitors there then? They can
Yeah.
not getting any heat stroke out there.
Well, I
in the middle of
can't
the
say
summer.
that.
Well,
That's-
but there is shade. Like
Yes.
that's like you're not in a parking lot,
Yeah,
right? Like
we've-
just getting beat
yeah.
down by the sun.
And we've supplemented a lot of the extra shade too. We're also going to put in some misting stations this year.
Okay.
We're going to have free water for everybody.
Nice.
Nice.
So there's a lot going on that's really just crowd friendly and people friendly up there.
So, what about insurance? You got to have insurance on a thing like this, then?
You do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what does
Is
that
it-
look
yeah,
like?
do.
Is that like you just pay at that time type insurance, or?
Oh,
Is
no,
that
you
like-
got to do it in advance.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yep. So you got two kinds of insurance on that. You have to have event insurance and inclement weather insurance. So that'll be the event insurance is obvious for obvious reasons. You have this much money put into this. You need to protect anybody that's there. Guests, different things like that. There's a certain layer of protection that you get for the general, and then supplemental, or then inclement weather insurance is the if it rains over this amount and you lose this much of your potential, you can get paid back
Oh, okay.
that potential.
I got you.
So yeah, it's just kind of a little. You don't have to do inclement weather insurance, but you
You're outdoors. It makes a lot more
should.
sense.
Yeah, it's
You
a
live in
really
Michigan.
good idea.
inclement weather insurance.
I was gonna say it is in Michigan, called the Michigan Metal Fest.
Yeah, you start right off the
Inclement-
bat. It's the first thing you buy is inclement weather insurance.
Yeah, inclement weather. You can expect that here. So let's talk a little bit about just this year's event, man. I think we kind of covered most of the. Is there anything else you want to say about maybe the past events or anything that we may have missed? Just like your voyage going into this year, 2025.
No, I think the pivotal point was the trauma bonding in 22.
The mud day.
Michigan
Yeah,
Mud Fest.
everything changed after that.
I'm actually planning on getting that tattoo on my leg at some point.
Yeah?
Michigan Mud Fest. that was my first year, but it was a great year nonetheless.
So 2025. Now we kind of got a 2-day type of thing going on here.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So August 22nd, August 23rd. So it's at the same place.
Yep.
Right. And so you just wanted to have a little pre-party thing, it looks like.
So our goal with this is we do want to grow into a full-on 2-day festival.
Okay.
There's a couple different ways you can do that. You can bite off a large amount and take a huge risk. Like I've seen some other festival organizers do. They've really tried to take it from a 1-day to a 2-day, and they tried to model the second day after the first day. And what you do is you split your demographic in half, and you have half of them go to 1 day, half of them go to the other day. Maybe 10, 15% will do both.
Mm-hmm.
But you end up making it a higher cost. So half of your demographic can't afford to go to both days, but they might have something come up that they can't. So it actually gets dwindled down to a 25%, and then your other half just can't afford it, period. So they're just not going to go. So the key is to not have too much money into that additional day that you try to grow into so that you don't go bankrupt trying to grow your festival. That's huge for me. Like I want to take care of this thing so that everybody can enjoy it for a long time. Having 2 days is not worth the potential loss that you could develop from it. So we worked with the Arboretum and with our production team to get some good costs for this additional day to get our costs kind of low.
Okay.
It wasn't a huge negotiation or anything. It was just more like, what can we do to not max out all of our costs for this evening? Let's combine some of our costs for both nights. Let's do some of, and let's take and put some artists out there that aren't at the top of the game. You know, they're not super expensive artists, but they're really good artists. Let's get some of that going on, and let's get this night to initiate. So we're calling it a pregame right now, but at the end game for this is hopefully for it to be a full-on second night of Michigan Metal Fest. And if you have two full nights of it, I think everybody will truly enjoy it. But you have to get up to that point. So our actual demographic as a festival has to grow before that becomes something that's going to be profitable for us.
Right.
You know, and that's hard to forecast. It's hard to understand when you really just want to go and you want to grow and you want to do it. But I've learned enough from this over the years to know where I stand and what I can and can't do. You know, what my team is capable of. And we also don't want to overwhelm the team. Like Saturday night's crazy.
Yeah.
That whole festival is nuts for us to run, you know?
Yeah.
And then to say that we're going to do a second night, I felt like I owed it to them to make it the most manageable second night that we could have. So we're opening at 4 rather than a full day. And we're shutting down at like 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's only one stage versus 2 stages. We'll actually set up the first stage for Friday night, have everything running, and that'll be cool because that'll actually get us a test run for Saturday night on that stage and get everything dialed in really good. So that way, all we really got to finish setting up that day is that main stage and get all that dialed in. So we kind of started looking at as, you know, how can we do this without really taken from ourselves more,
right?
You know.
So yeah, dude, so you pick the bands on that Friday or whatever. You said they weren't just, you know, they're not over the top bands like you said on like their guarantees or whatever, but so that starts at 4:00, but you can still expect like the Michigan Metal Fest experience of a show or I should say a Michigan Metal Fest show, because you throw on a lot of shows, right? So so and then, man, fucking, you got Dying Fetus this year. So, but I just want to say on Friday, as of now, we'll just say that. So Raven Black, they're kind of like the main band, right?
Yep.
And then you got Summoner Circle, Illusion of Fate. Heard of those guys? They're like kind of like a black metal type band.
Yeah,
right?
they're awesome, man.
And
awesome.
Phil Spewer, and what's the other band? Do you know? Because I can't read that.
Ooh. I don't have it right in front of me. I've got so many band names in my head.
I know it.
It's no pressure. It's no worry. I just can't read their logo.
Errors of Humanity.
Okay.
I swear, man. No, I'm the same way. And I'm not a hater on logos. I'm such an advocate for make that thing a huge burning garbage fire if you want it to be. Like, I don't care. I'll respect that garbage pile to the end, dude. But yeah, it's a hard one to read, and I always catch myself like, oh, dude, I can usually make out almost every logo.
Right.
You know, so that one's definitely kudos to Errors of Humanity for making that logo challenging enough to stump us a little bit. But those guys, I swear, man, when you see that band,
sweet.
So brutal. Yeah. So good, man.
I mean, their actual logo is an error of humanity. If you think about it.
So, I mean,
you can't read it.
Bands like Raven Black, that, you know, it's a great show, and, you know, they've got a great camp. And I think, you know, thinking back on it, like every one of those bands that are on there at some point, you know, either Steve and somebody else or Steve and I have looked at each other, you know, it'd been like, these guys right here.
Yeah.
These guys right here are the ones.
Oh, yeah. Then, August 23rd, main day of the Michigan Metal Fest 2025. So you always kind of keep it around August.
Yeah.
At that time, just so it's consistent all the time.
Yeah, it's technically the driest time of the year.
Okay.
So I try to do that just to kind of whittle down the chances of weather a little bit more.
But, man, you got some bangers on this fucking year, man. It's some absolute cool-ass bands.
Thank you.
I haven't got a chance to check out Fight From Within, but I keep seeing their name all over the place, so I'm going to have to definitely check those guys out.
Oh, don't miss their set.
Oh,
like that's what you talk about, the live thing. Don't miss their set.
Badass. Yeah. But yeah, Within the Ruins of Sulphur, that's a super badass band.
Oh, those two, man. I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, dude.
You know, you want art.
Yeah.
You don't want you're not we're not trying to do what anybody else is doing with our festival. I know that for sure. I could give a shit less what anybody else is doing. And those two bands came across my desk and it was immediate for me. Like, yeah, if you can lock these in, let's go ahead and get that done right now, man.
Hell yeah.
Of Sulfur is just incredible, man. They're going somewhere, you
Super
know.
heavy.
Yeah. Well, and have you listened to them too much?
I have.
I'm familiar with
I
it.
have.
Yeah. So like their actual clean vocals are really unique. Like too, like it's a different ride,
Yeah.
man. Really different. I got a lot of respect for that band, and I can't wait to see all of our people's reaction because I know it's a band that not a ton of our people have seen.
Yeah.
I just know that, you know, and that's another key to me to making a great festival is, you know, you bring in bands that are bangers that people know, but make sure to slip in those bands that they need to know.
Yeah, on the come up.
That's right, man.
Yeah.
That band like Filth, you know, like
yeah.
that's why we had them, you know, a few different times at our events.
I love
man.
me some Filth, man.
Oh, that's one of my favorite bands, you know, and it just people have to hear that, you know. I Bet is another one that's on this.
Chicago.
Oh God, man! If you haven't heard them, just go listen to them now, man. Crazy.
So with these bands, you said most of them are handpicked by you, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about the vetting process then? Like, because I'm sure there's a part of it where you say, hey, do you want to play this year's Michigan Metal Fest, right? Like, you kind of had an open invitation. So are you taking submissions or what does that look like?
Yeah. So there's a few different approaches at how the bands get lined up. Obviously, I hand search for the top end of the festival, you know. So I'm basically rambling off all the bands I would love to see to my agent until one of them sticks. That's the top end of it, you know. And then he'll give me some options for you know, some of the other bands below that, you know, direct support and stuff like that. You know, if I already have a lot in mind, so I'm already throwing a lot at him. But he'll get pitched a lot of bands from higher agents too. So like the actual larger agencies are pitching for our festival too.
Oh, nice.
So they're saying we would like to put this band on, or can you do this band? You know, so that's pretty cool. And then we do have a submission process. We allow bands to open submit to michiganmetalfest@gmail.com for no fee. I've seen a lot of festivals do some weird stuff with people, like, you know, $25 and you can submit, you know. It's like, dude, what?
Yep. That happens.
Okay.
You know, so we'd there's no cost or anything. You might not hear back from us because we're so busy, and there's a 1,200
Yeah.
submissions for the year. You know, you might not get a, you know, sorry,
no
we
reply is
didn't.
a reply.
Yeah, you know, sometimes, but my assistant tries. She really does. She's like, I'm going to try to get back to all these bands. And I'm like, well, good luck, dude, because it's very exhausting.
Yeah.
You know, because then they're all like, well, let me ask a couple more questions now that you answered that. And you're like, all right,
Then you're in a
1,200 different
conversation
conversations. You know, so we try to let them know if you hear from us, then that's moving forward with it. And if not, you know, there's no hard feelings.
Right.
We love everybody who submits, respect and appreciate everybody who submits to play.
Yeah, it's never a matter of disrespect at all.
Oh,
You know,
right.
it's just
And
so
for
many.
bands, a lot of times it becomes frustrating because they'll submit year after year. And then you'll hear from, you know, some people that you could even be close with, you know, like, dude, why are you not looking at my band? You know, why is this going on? And it's just, you know, well, this year we had 20 bands to put on Metal Fest.
Yeah.
1,200 submissions, minimum. It was probably more like 1,400 when you count the agent submissions as well. So there was just, you know, a ridiculous amount of submissions, and you got to have 20 bands out of that, you know. And then, like we talked about this earlier, it's not just meant for Michigan bands. It's not meant for homies. It's meant for bands on the come up,
Right.
and for our fans to get the best entertainment they can. You know, like, you're there to see a metal show, man. I'm gonna pick some bands for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm gonna
Right.
just straight pick up some bands for you to watch and love and talk about all year long. That's my goal, you know, is just to make the juiciest metal show you can imagine going to. I love that, you know. So it's not, and that's why, like I said, my band isn't on there this year. I would love to play with Dying Fetus.
Yeah, no shit.
But I didn't choose me this year.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Well, and a lot of bands too, you know, that might not necessarily make it onto the festival. You know, a lot of times they'll make it on the club shows as well.
Right.
You know, like there's always that aspect of it as well. Like,
Yeah.
so
Or we'll work that process of where we put them on a club show first and start getting our crowd used to them. Because, you know, I also don't necessarily want to bring a bunch of bands onto Metal Fest that our crowd hasn't heard of. You know,
Right.
some, like we talked about, I do want to expose you to some bands that you should hear. But like at the same time, you know, I really want them to kind of know them too. So sometimes I'll bring a band that everybody knows, like Autumn Lies Buried, to a show and have them headline a show that I know they're going to do awesome at, you know. But then at the same time, I have a second agenda, and I really want all those people to see, all right, bet.
right.
I want them to learn about this band from Chicago that's just beating the streets, you
Yeah.
know, and I have value in my heart for both those bands, you know, no matter which one's doing more or less or going which direction. They're both doing great things. They both sound great, you know, and I really wanted people. So that was something I did at the last Christmas event that we had. You know, I brought All Right Bet out there. I almost had him on as a headliner because I thought that they were awesome, you know, and I thought it would be great. But like, I knew that our event wouldn't have been as full, for one. And then for two, you know, I really want to give people what they want and not what I want.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
I gave them what they really wanted, and that's Autumn Lies Buried, because everybody wants Autumn Lies Buried playing at their show, man. They're awesome. But then I, you know, my favorite part of that night was seeing more crowd surfers than I've ever seen
Yeah,
at a
I
show
got-
at the Music Factory
I got
for this
great
band that
footage of
none of them
crowd
ever
surfers.
saw before.
Yeah.
All Right Bet came out, and they're just, you know, they're crazy, man. They just start yelling all this Chicago fucking beatdown shit, and this crowd just, just all over that. They're running all over the stage and stuff. The crowd, you know,
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going on? At one point, I went over to get one of my security guards. I looked at him, Spike. I looked over at him. I give him that look. I was like, you know, because they're just flying. And they're running all over the stage. They're tripping over the speakers and shit. And he looks over at me and he goes, yeah. And he nods for us to go up there. So we both go up there and we get behind the rail. And he gets up like most of the way up on the rail. And he has me get up there too. And I thought we were going to do like crowd control. I thought he actually like pulled me into the mix for security. And then he's having me fucking crowd surf with him.
He got the wrong nod.
I was
He
up
like, "Oh."
on the rail before I realized this motherfucker's having me crowd surf with him. So he waits for this part in the song to hit, and then both of us jump out. And there was like,
So that night I had 4 cameras running, and I managed to catch that exact moment. It was one of the cuts that actually made it out into the wild or whatnot. So
That's badass.
it was really cool.
and I had 4 different friends send me different
yeah.
views
Oh,
of
yeah.
it too, different angles.
That's funny. Steve's like, got to get this under control. Next thing, he's just flying across the
Yeah, that's really what it was too.
So if
So
that
much
gives you
for
any
control.
idea how I handle situations at my shows.
Yeah, so much for control.
Part of the problem.
Yeah,
though.
I thought that had not meant he wanted to go for a ride. I thought he meant.
There was some confusion there for
And
sure.
then before we jumped, I was like, I was having you come up here to help me control. He's like, well, we're jumping now.
He's like, we'll get that on the next go around.
Right. We can perfect that process
Yeah.
next time, boss.
But so, you know, this year I see all these bands, a bunch of cool bands. I've seen some bands, you know, some regional bands that kind of, you know, this convalescence band, they seem to come around a lot. They seem to play a lot of your shows, it seems like. You see their name on a lot of different flyers and stuff. But you got Accuser of the Brethren on here. And so is there anything in your mind where, like, I want to have at least 1 or 2 bands that are from Michigan that are kind of like
Oh, absolutely.
on the come up? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, is that
Yeah.
kind of the
I think I'd be
idea?
a monster if I didn't get at least
No Michigan
one.
band.
You know, so yeah, you can look at that and see, you know, I'd say, you know, usually I don't like to do any less than 2 to 3
Okay.
bands from around the area usually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's 2 this year.
Yeah.
That's the lowest amount of local bands I've ever had on that event. It used to be, I mean, that was what paved the way for
Right.
that event, was a lot of local bands,
Mhm.
honestly, you know. Homage to all of them, man. Honestly, like respect to every band that ever helped forge this thing, honestly, man. Like when I think about it, you know, there'd be like 32 to 34 local bands the first couple of years that we were doing it.
Oh wow.
Okay.
It was absolutely just covered, you know. And then as the budget grows to be able to get, you know, I haven't really changed my budget on headliners. Obviously, with the times, your budget changes because we pay
Oh.
more per capita
Yeah.
for anything right now. But my budget was able to rise as far as regional bands. So now I'm able to give all the bands that are coming from Missouri and Connecticut and North Carolina, you know, all those guys get their guarantee that they want, and they get catering, you know, and they get put into this show that really is going to showcase them. And these are the bands that people are talking about. You know, they might be from North Carolina, but they're not just a band from North Carolina. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's the band from
Yeah.
North Carolina
Right. Yep.
that everybody's talking about, you
Yeah.
know.
And you bring up Accuser of the Brethren. I mean, like, why wouldn't you? Like,
Oh,
they're,
yeah.
they're a great show. They're,
yeah.
I mean, with intent, come on. Like,
Yeah,
the-
Accuser of the Brethren
yeah.
could be from
they
any
bring a great
state,
show
and I put 'em
every
on.
time.
I fucking love
You know?
those dudes, man.
Yeah.
They've been on the show a couple times, and I've absolutely just gotten a awesome, you know, like friendship out of the deal with them now.
Yeah.
And
Bonus.
Keto is actually on one of our new songs we're about to put out, so it's like I absolutely love those guys. But I'm just glad that they're on the show. Like I think
Yep.
Yeah.
last year you had Recorruptor, and they were just on the show. You
Yes.
know, so-
Yeah, they kill
but-
it too.
But
I
they're
love some Big Raptor.
they're out there doing shit. So is Accuser of the
Yep.
Brethren. So I see where you're coming from. You can't just have a, you know, I mean, especially if you got more of a regional budget now too, and you can kind of bring in some of these bands. And at the end of the day, it's about the fest being successful, not about, like
Yeah.
you said,
The homies.
Yeah, the homies.
Yeah.
Right.
You can get in a big
Right.
fucking conundrum if you're always just watching out for the homies. Like
Yeah.
the homies don't always necessarily make the, you know, make the money and make the world go round. And this shit costs money. So
It does
You know what I
every
mean?
year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring
More
the
and
show.
more
Right.
every year.
You know what I'm saying? So like the homies got to understand at some time that it's not really about that. It's about the success of this show to keep this thing going. You
Oh,
know?
yeah,
And then
no.
you'd be surprised how many new homies you develop.
Oh yeah, yeah. Exactly.
You know,
But
ones
I mean-
that want to play ball and ones that want to be
Yeah.
a part of something big and,
Right.
and do the moves that it takes to make it big.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
But I mean, that's really the most important thing, right? Like, bring the show.
Right.
You've got to bring the show.
Yeah,
Like, it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You know.
for sure. So the one thing that I always like to talk about on this show, and just, you know, seeing both of you guys talk and just your relationship develop. The one thing about metal that's amazing to us and all the bands that come through our door, and you know, just through this podcast and us playing on stage for so many years, at the end of the day, it's about those relationships you build, man. You know what I mean? I see your
Yeah.
face light up and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this, you know, person, I barely even knew them, but now they're like one of my good friends, and it's all because of this crazy ass music that we listen to that most people can't even comprehend what it is.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's just those relationships, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's just a great feeling out of it, just to know the people and know so many good, genuine people, especially the people that are out there
Yeah.
working, volunteering, helping put this thing on, and fucking helping in any way they can to, you know, make sure this thing is a success.
To
you
make
know?
sure.
Yeah.
That's
You
a
know?
good way to put it. You
Yeah.
know, you could want to help all day long.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to make sure
Yep.
something happens is a value that is hard to find, and it's developed from passion.
Exactly. So kudos to you for that, man. So what about this? What else about this year's fest do you want people to know about, man?
I think it's really cool to know that we have parking available online right now. You can prepay for parking. That's something we've never been able to do before. Thanks to Ken, that really is a huge thing, and also hotels. So if you want a hotel ahead of time, we got a link on our website that takes you directly to a block for the Hilton down the street.
And
Okay.
the hotel thing is something that if you're interested in that, you got to hop on quick because that does have a cutoff date. So
Okay.
Yeah, a month before the event, they'll pull that.
Oh, okay.
So
And-
anybody trying to get hotels, now's the time to do it.
And did you have something, Nick?
No.
Oh, okay. Did now do you put up like the main bands in like a hotel, or are you responsible for any of that? Is that
Yeah, a
part
lot of
kind of
times.
the shtick or whatever?
It really depends on what the artist has. A lot of times they'll have their contract and rider laid out. Depending on what the deal is, you know, a lot of times it'll include hotels. Sometimes it'll be a back line.
Okay.
Like Hatebreed. I think that was one of the bands we had to have a full backline for. So all their cabs, drums, sound equipment, everything we had to have lined up for them.
Ready to go.
Hotels, flights,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Some bands are easy. They're just like, nah, just give us a guarantee, and it's a lot of
Guaranteeing
them.
the stage.
Yeah, a lot of them will have their rider with all of their stuff on it they want, their food and drinks and all that stuff. They're like, but we'll take the buyout, because a lot of times you don't need much at the events. They'll give you a $250 list of items, and then they're like, or we'll just take the buyout. So then you're like, yeah, I'll give you the money so I don't have to shop.
Right.
Meanwhile, they spend $50, on the things they need for that hour or two.
Yeah, you're almost kind of wasting a little bit of money at that point, right? Because you're buying stuff they might not even use, and
It's
then
just
it's like
part
take
of
the
that.
money. Yeah,
yeah, it's part of that process.
Right.
So and we usually make them pretty happy though, because like I said, we provide like an actual catering. And they get showers and all
that's
the good
badass,
stuff
dude.
that, a lot of times they just don't get that stuff when they go places, and it's frustrating. But we have a runner, Mike Hagist actually goes and every year has been our runner for the bands. So he's also had a band hospitality for us now. So he makes sure that they have everything they need. He'll go to the store for them. He'll take them to the hotel, do all that stuff. So.
Yeah, that's something I've heard a couple times over, man, is like the bands are just really super happy with the amount of hospitality, that we're able to provide. So, that helps them out quite a bit too. I heard one band recently, talk about that they get some of the best hospitality that they get in their festival season at Michigan Metal Fest. So,
Nice.
I mean, that's a really cool piece of feedback to hear,
Yeah, the Born of Osiris camp still, I
Yep.
ran into them down in Chicago.
Yep.
And he was like, dude, we loved your guys' fest. Like, we'll come play anything you guys put on.
That's
They're
badass.
like,
dude.
that the way you guys treated us was top level.
Right.
So that's the highest praise.
Yeah,
it's
just
so
that
cool
you
to be
came
able to
there and
say
you
that.
couldn't have had a better time. Like, it was just it was fun, and it was good energy, and the people were good to you. You ate good.
Yeah.
That's like that wholesome shit.
Yeah.
I like that. I like getting done with it. Everybody just had such a great time. Everything's paid for. You don't owe nobody nothing. They don't owe you nothing.
Yeah.
And everybody just had the best time they could.
Yeah, because I mean, like the alternative, right? 2 beer tickets per band member, and
it could
no
be a
food.
nightmare sometimes, man.
Right.
Like
Out there in a hot ass day and things aren't right.
Yep. So I mean, a lot of bands have to experience that, and they that's a hard thing to go through. Like, I'm gonna get a guarantee and a couple beer tickets and no water.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Nobody talking to you again the rest of the night.
yeah,
Something like that. Like, that happens
checking
a lot.
on you, or
Yeah, man.
exactly.
Or they show like as a local. I remember being at a show up in Lansing, and the promoter wasn't there all night. He showed up long enough to collect the money that I had gathered selling tickets for the show, and then he bailed. And I was just like, man, I played this show. Like, I thought you were going to be here. I thought your people were going to be here. I thought some people cared about this. I got up here. I had no point of contact. I had just like nothing. The sound guy didn't really want to deal with us. It was like this guy just put together the show and totally bailed. It was an interesting thing. And that was another one of those learning experiences for me that happened before Metal Fest. Before I had it, I started Metal Fest because I saw a lack of respect and professionalism. And I just felt like, I'm not a professional at this, but I could do a way better job at that.
Okay.
I could see that from a mile away.
Yeah.
Like I could invite a group of bands and a group of people to a place and not abandon them.
Right.
And I think I could do a good job at that. And I think that I could put on a bill that people really appreciate the time you put into the bill itself. That means a lot to me. I mean, one of my favorite moments of every year is that moment I get to put out that full flyer for Metal Fest. And I sit back and I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know if everybody's going to love it or if everybody's going to hate it, if it's going to be the year for that one, because that's what it's like too. We had Mushroom Head last year because really that was the year for it.
Yeah.
It was a new metal year.
Yeah.
It was weird,
Yeah.
but it happened. And me and my agent both agreed, like, this is the step. This is the move.
Right.
And then this year we're like, we even hit up the crowd. We're like, what do you guys think? We did some votes online. You want something that's similar to last year, like kind of metal, but, kind of Mushroom Head,
Yeah.
Or do you want something extreme? And we got like
Go hard.
90% vote saying extreme. We're like, yes.
Well,
yes.
You picked some of the kings of extreme
Yeah.
this year, that's for sure. I mean, as far as, fucking, what a great band, too. I've seen Fetus like 5 times. They're so badass, especially for a 3-piece, man. Such
they're
a fucking awesome band.
Incredible to watch, man.
Such an awesome band. Yeah, so what about you, Ken? Is there anything else you want to speak on about the 2025?
I'm just looking forward to it. I obviously I like to see the bands or whatnot. I don't get to. I try to put out as many fires as I possibly can too. I'm looking forward to it. I enjoy like the work and the behind the scenes aspect of it, and
riding the quad.
I do. You know what? I do. Strategically procure the quad every year. But I'm not just riding around chilling. I try to make sure that I'm adding value with it. On the downside, I might not put as much time into my own company as I'd like to, but
Pixel page photography.
Okay.
Pixel page photography.
Yeah.
Nicely done, Steve.
I wasn't gonna let it go much longer. It was drilling at me.
Got it in at the right time.
But I try to be everywhere that I can be. And my wife, she's she's there making sure that things happen at the press tent. And I'm just looking forward to it, man. Like I could ramble on all day, but I'm just super looking forward to being there and getting to be a part of it again this year.
Cool. So I know there's probably a ton of work to do up until now, this show, right?
Yeah.
But everything's dialed in as far as the bands and everything go.
Yep.
Now it's just getting everything ready. Is that where we're at with it? Just gearing up for this thing?
Yeah, it is. You want to one of the hardest things to do for these events is ordering. It's it's a cumbersome act. So you have to order all this merch at the right times.
Okay.
So like right now we have to order a bunch of our t-shirts, our festival t-shirts, right? That's a hard thing to do, man, because bands drop off. Not every year and not in mass numbers or anything, but like you just make that brand new shirt, hundreds of them. And then all of a sudden a band changes.
Or the flyers.
Or the flyer, so like it's kind of hard, timing everything as far as ordering all your merchandise, your ticketing, your posters, your banners. Oh my God, for Midwest Brutal Fest, we crunched ourselves on time hard this year, dude, because it's the first year we did it.
Yeah.
And we just we're booming along. We're getting everything else done. All of a sudden, it just kind of hit us. We're like, dude, we're like a little over 2 weeks out from the event, and we didn't have our banner kits for the stages ordered.
Oh, damn.
It's disgusting the amount of processing power you need for a 5-foot by 20-foot scrim.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So not only do you have to
in
order these
Photoshop,
things.
it's like the biggest file.
Yeah.
Imaginable.
So not only do you got to order these things, but you got to get them right, and then you have to wrestle with that amount of data, which has its own
So
issues.
we do the design work as well.
Okay.
Me and Ken. So probably mainly him. So when it gets into doing that stuff, we got to fit that into our schedule.
Right.
Of all this other stuff that we're doing.
Yeah.
We used to have a graphic designer, but it just went south. And it ended up being too much work for somebody else, quite honestly. It's just too much.
Well, there's
so
some
we
things-
have to do have to do too much on top of our too much, because that too much is too much for someone else.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, for you having, like the grand vision of it, there's just some things that you have to have creatively in-house. And you can't sit on the phone all day and try to
Explaining it to someone
explain
else.
what it is. You got to see it happen live, in front of you, So I try to be as much of a, for lack of better words, instrument when it comes to, helping to do the graphic design. But at the end of the day, it's super helpful for him to be able to see it unfold in front of him, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So now we do a good job of over shopping for designs. We try as hard as we can not to touch anything too much AI. We have had some designs in the past that were, and some of them seemed all right. And I had an artist that was using a lot of AI that I didn't know too. So we've switched up some artists now. We pay a little bit more money than I guess most people want to pay
Yeah.
for art.
Right.
But I have no problem with that even whatsoever, not even a little bit.
Right. Because it's art at the end of
It's
the day.
supporting an
right?
artist,
Yeah,
and it's getting
So-
their work out there in a really
But-
positive way.
Yeah, that ordering thing, man, and it's no shade on any of the bands. You know,
Right.
things happen. You gotta pull out sometimes. You know, it happens to the best of them. But
Yeah.
you know, like I said, when you said that was exactly what I was thinking in my head. You know, like that the right time to order the shirts and the flyers and stuff like that. That's painful.
Well, I understand that because I made that little commercial that I wanted to put on. I wanted to interject it
Yes.
on all the
Yeah,
episodes.
we
for
ran
you,
into that
you
with
know?
this
Yeah.
actual
So then
podcast.
Ken was like, that's cool, but this band might have changed. So he's like, do the top, 8 bands.
Yeah.
Well, I should have asked what the top 8 bands were because so I made another version of that commercial. I reshot it actually.
And it had that
And
band
then
in it.
then the band, the Larcino Row band, right?
Yeah.
Which I just listened to their album. That was the band. So I only
Yeah.
put one of them because it was already like shipped, ready to go. Like it was already on the Recorruptor episode,
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
already interjected it in, and I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to redo that. So I was like, well, maybe we could just do a stab or something right here and just have you say what you want to say on it, and then I could just take that little piece and I could put it on each podcast because I'd be more than happy to help promote the show in any way possible, man. Because
Cool.
we're all about community. We're all about helping in any way.
And
we
likewise,
can. So,
obviously, we'll be
yeah.
throwing you guys out there a lot too.
yeah,
man.
so and that's our goals is talk to the bands that you have there. And I know Ken and I we had a little chat about maybe something we could build after this together just to help
Yeah.
each other out because we're in the
Absolutely.
same boat, man. We do it for the passion. We do it to like meet new cool people that are passionate about the same things,
Absolutely.
and try to get us out there so we can platform these bands.
Yeah, let's
You know
build
what
a
I mean?
connection,
So,
man.
Yeah, for sure.
You
So,
guys should definitely be out at the event.
yeah, for
And,
sure.
I mean, if you haven't already thought about it, I think some interviews or something cool out there would be, super dope. Whatever you guys want to lean toward, I think that it's usually attainable with the right moves.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know we had talked about some other shows because you guys throw other shows too, right?
Yep.
So you throw a
Yep.
lot of shows at the Music Factory, correct?
Yes.
Actually, my band, Iron Trumpets Iron, was supposed to play at one of those shows last year, but the Gore Pig band's thing broke down and then it got canceled, I guess, or something like that. Because Iron Sharpens Iron was supposed to play. We were supposed to play with Annex Void. And that was a band we had on the show too, and I really liked that band, and I was like super stoked to play, and then it just kind of
That was with another promotion company, I think.
Was it?
Yeah.
Not it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wasn't
I wasn't
it?
trying to absolve us of anything. I just did that.
No, I'd rather have you do that.
Yeah,
I just
that-
knew it was at the Music Factory, so I
Yeah.
thought, I know a lot of you
Yeah.
know a lot through there. or
Yeah,
whatever.
that was with another promotion company, and I don't want to say for a couple reasons. One, because I'm not 100% sure which one it was, but I do remember the Gore Pig van breaking down thing very
Yep.
specifically. So yeah, but yeah, it's and then you guys are associated with Jeff Hostetler as well, right? He plays in your band.
Yeah, he's a guitar player.
Yeah.
in Iron Sharpens Iron. Yep.
Yes.
Jeff.
Oh man, I love that dude. to
Oh,
death,
yeah, for sure, man. Good guy.
He's
Yeah.
awesome.
And it's funny how many times, like, so we had Lucius Fox on the show,
Yeah.
so those guys rip, but they were talking about Jeff because Jeff
Yeah.
helped record them guys when they were getting going. So it's just like everybody, Jeff's kind of like the Kevin Bacon of the music scene.
Yeah, you are somewhere within 6 ways
Yeah.
to move
Yeah,
with Jeff Hostetler.
exactly.
Yeah.
You
That's
can
awesome.
Say 6 names and Jeff's name definitely is going to come.
Nobody's
up.
gonna have anything bad to say about Jeff.
No,
Not
he's
at
a
all.
great guy,
And he
man.
does great work. Everything he does, he does a great job. And I go way back, Jeff, because our band Infinite Design played with him, and he had a band called Eternal, and they were like some technical death shit way fucking like 20 years ago almost now, fucking maybe 15, something like that. So
Yeah.
Well, of course, Jeff's amazing. He's a great dude.
Oh, yeah.
So all right, fellas. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. We're starting to hit the 2-hour mark. I don't want to take too much of your time. It's getting a little later on a Sunday evening, but is there anything else that you want to say about the Metal Fest, or anything else you want to promote, or anything maybe we have missed? Or
Absolutely, yeah, man. I just gotta tell everybody, if you want any kind of info on Michigan Metal Fest, go to michiganmetalfest.net. You can get anything from merch to tickets to VIP packages. We have an insane level of involvement that you can get into with us. Actually, you can do what was the VIP level? It was We got the one above Brutal.
Savage.
The Savage, yeah. So we Ken actually spearheaded the Savage VIP package this year. So that includes you can get tickets to 5 shows of your choice for the year.
Yeah, 5 of the club shows.
You get an exclusive hockey jersey that's black with gold print that says Savage on it, and then you get your own number on it.
Okay.
There's only 20 of these packages available for a year.
Yep.
So get online and check those guys out if you want something super exclusive, something super badass. People have already been buying it up. They love the package. I was talking to me last night at the show.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, yeah, we'll go to that one because we still got 3 more shows left on our
nice.
package for free.
Yeah, it's cool because
know?
they can grab any of the shows over the course of the year. Any 5 shows that they choose. So
That's
Yeah.
badass, man.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool thing. And then there's some other cool things involved with that package too. So go ahead and check that out online. And then another big plug I want to put out there is for Midwest Brutal Fest.
Okay,
This
sure.
is the first year that we put this on. It's got PE headlining.
Nice.
We've also got what is it? A Freak on a Leash.
Yep.
Chicagoland tribute to Korn. That's going to be incredible. We've got 14 bands that day, 2 stages. It's out at Territorial Brewing Company. That's North America's largest beer garden. It's on a retired golf course. There's a brook that runs through it. You're walking over a lighted bridge between the 2 stages. I just can't speak enough about how cool this event is coming together.
Yeah,
That website is midwestbrutalfest.com.
Okay.
Same thing. There are VIP levels available, tickets, merchandise. Please go check it out because, again, it's our first year and we want as many people there as we can get there. In fact, you guys, open invitation to you guys.
Okay.
I'll hook you up with a
absolutely.
couple of tickets when we're
Okay.
done here.
Hell yeah.
I'd love for you guys to come out and just check it out.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds great. Dude.
Awareness is our number one thing for that festival this
Okay.
year. We want it to grow. It's a rock and metal festival,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
it's a different vibe, and we want it to grow just like Michigan Metal Fest has for our big rock crowd.
Okay.
Because we know there's plenty of them out there that want their event, and there's so many rock bands that try to get on Metal Fest. I can't tell you how many bands I go through that are we heavy enough? Dude, I don't know if we're heavy enough, but we're like good. And like,
If you got to ask that, no.
right, you're not heavy enough for Michigan Metal Fest, but
Right.
you are awesome enough for Midwest Brutal Fest.
Okay. Hell
Well,
yeah,
and there's
dude.
a
I love that.
couple of bands that have been on the Metal Fest bill that fit Brutal Fest as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, we
right.
still have heavy bands on Midwest Brutal Fest too.
Sure.
But we're gonna be looking more in the vein of a rock headliner year after year. Like
Okay.
Seven Dust.
Oh, yeah.
Taproot, different
Fuck
stuff
yeah.
like that, and start building it up. And it'd be cool to get into the bigger ones where eventually it's like some Godsmack or
Okay.
or some large bands. I mean, anything could fill that. You could have Korn out there. I mean,
Right.
anything large and rock or hard rock or rock and metal would be awesome. I mean, I'd even go with a metal band if it fit right, but I just really want the vibe to feel like more of a mix.
Okay.
So you can really get out there and experience a lot more than just a heavy. Some people that's a little bit far for them. Not me. Love it.
Yeah.
It can be as heavy as balls for me.
Right.
But I just have had so many people that really want to see this other thing develop and grow. I think that it's got a better chance because you know how big the demographic is for rock.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it my choice of a festival if I'm going to go? I don't know. I really don't know. I think it depends on the bands, quite
Yeah.
honestly. If you got a
Same.
Korn headlining, but then they got these, I'd go to that hands down.
Right.
Feel like
Same
you're-
as I go to the Infinite Annihilator,
Right,
for
yeah.
Metal Fest,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
hell yeah, that's that festival that they're capping their shit off right now.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm going for.
And if you got any interest, I don't know if you guys disc golf. Either one of you do disc golf?
Oh, no.
I haven't in a
Well,
while.
they're-
I have too many hobbies already.
That's fair enough. I mean, so he was talking about Territorial being a retired golf course. They turned it into a disc golf course
Oh, okay.
over there. So I mean, it's like there's a brook that runs through it. It's a really beautiful property. So if anybody's got any interest in going down there before or after the festival as well, just kind of get a load of what the venue's going to be like. Like, I mean, it's worth the
Territorial
trip.
Brewing Company,
Well,
1600 A Avenue.
Yeah,
Hey,
I mean,
perfect, man.
at the end of the day, it's a nice place to see. So
It is for sure.
Well, shoot, I could sit here and talk to you
Yeah.
guys all day. I'm sure there's probably like 50 more questions I got for you. But like I said, I don't want to take up a bunch of your time. We're on a Sunday evening at this point. But I do want to thank you for your time for coming
Yes.
on our show,
Yeah,
man.
thank you,
Absolutely.
I do want to thank
Steve,
you
thank
both for everything that you're doing for Michigan metal in general. The shows that you put on, the passion you show through what you've just talked about. I love seeing your face light up when you're talking about metal because it's like, man, this is my brother right here. This is how we feel. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
The same way when I
Yeah.
sit across from this guy every single Sunday, you know, it's like, this might be weird to some people, but it's our life, right?
Yeah,
It's
I was
what
gonna
we
say.
live for. You
Yeah, we
what
don't
I'm
know
saying?
any better at this point. We've been
Yeah.
doing it for so
No,
long.
we
Just-
was born stupid.
Exactly.
We're gonna
We was
continue.
born stupid. But yeah, thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it. You know, and we can speak more off air and you know, how we can contribute and maybe we can make a relationship going forward and we can contribute to the Metal Fest going forward. And real quick though, I'm sorry, I'm trying to tie this up, but one question I do want to ask. So
Yeah.
the Brutal Fest though.
Yeah.
Hopefully this might be an annual thing then too,
Yes.
right? Is that okay? Cool. That's what we're
Yes,
going for.
absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah, we
Okay.
want to shoot for June every year.
Okay.
Absolutely, yearly event. We're hoping to make it even bigger next year.
Okay.
You know,
Hell yeah.
it'll be big. Like for a first year fest, it's gonna look really big.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
like I said, we got the full banner outfits for the stages, 2 big stages going in there. It's gonna be legit, man. Definitely an awesome event. And then I'm just hoping. I was talking with the owner of Territorial. You know, we want it to be even bigger. Like, so we're gonna work on. I think we're gonna try to fix a bridge that's there so that we can park like 1,000 more cars
Oh wow.
Yeah.
or something like that.
Okay.
So we're really hoping to work on some expansion projects for that immediately in
Okay.
the future.
Cool. Well, appreciate you guys' time. Thank you so much. Go buy some tickets, MichiganMetalFest.net and MichiganBrutalFest.com.
Midwest Brutal Fest.
MidwestBrutalFest.com. So go get your tickets there for those experiences. Also, your merch is badass for the Michigan Metal Fest stuff. So at least you made some
Thanks.
sweet merch. I know it kind of
Yes.
sucks. You got to wait for the bands to get on there, but like your designs and shit are all badass, dude. So
Thank
it's
you.
definitely something I would support.
Yeah.
You know, not just because of the bands, but like because you chose some sick art on there. But
Nice.
yeah, make sure you go check out the fest, support Michigan Metal Fest, and keep it metal. Much love. Peace.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for checking out the episode. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a share.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our podcast today, please give it a rating on your streaming service to help us gain some exposure.
And if you really enjoyed the show, please give us a follow or hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us every week. And remember, keep it metal.